307. Aesthetics of discouragement. Since we can't extract beauty from life, let's at least try to extract beauty from not being able to extract beauty from life.
Just shredding. I think that's the term for it. That little guy up there is shredding. Let's see if I can connect a proper microphone. Ew. Where's the mic?
Hey FP, I tried to record my latest missive to you as a voice note yesterday on a walk near Chesham, but it all became far too sort of rambly and navel-gazing, so I'm going to give you here the bits that I think you might enjoy. This is usually the place where you and I talk to each other in written prose, but I think there's something about voice notes, right? With all their hesitancies, all their awkward, off-the-cuff, mangled phrasings that sometimes feels closer to the flex and the flow of freely associative communication or exchange, which I know is the gold standard for us, is it not? And even more special when one is able to do it in the company of another.
Yeah, that's how it always happens. You're looking for the mic and then... Oh, no, I'm not looking for food for you, Max. I'm looking for a mic. Food for the ears. I wanted to catch that guy shredding, but he... No, I'm not going to actually give you food now because that'll just reward you for your beggary. We don't want to reward you for begging, Max. Although, of course, begging does... Yeah, the problem with begging is it does also sometimes work, because I do sometimes give you food. Damn, that guy was shredding. Where's he now? He's gone to shred for a more appreciative audience. What sound was he making? It was like...
So, we're standing underneath the memory tree, as it's known on Marvel Hill, overlooking Chesham, part of Dungrove Farm, I think. This sort of huge, century-like oak that stands all alone, facing the town down below. Its branches strewn with Tibetan prayer flags, faded photographs, colourful ribbons. Someone has hung a baby bottle on one of the branches, and inside this bottle a little note reads, "Please God, can you bring me another little sister like the one that you took away?" A few moments before, some shirtless dude, maybe, 20 years old, carrying a guitar, has walked up the hill and waved at us, and now he's sitting a few hundred meters away, framed by a fallen tree, communing with the surroundings like a very different god, a sort of Greek god, a living Apollo, I suppose. You know, that god of music, poetry, light, healing, and prophecy. No laurel wreath on his head, but you could imagine one being there.
Imagine what Pessoa might have been able to produce had he not died of cirrhosis of the liver at the tender age of, well, we would say tender age of 47. That's young. That's a young age to die. And can we say he chose to intoxicate himself every day and to go into this sort of deeply Nina Simone melancholic state from which his missives to us come from? And would we really want him to have therapy and to, let's say, kick the habit and maybe write even more melancholic fragments, or maybe, which today we might call podcasts, from a very, weird podcast, but certainly podcasts of some shape or another. Surely this is a podcast oeuvre, his Book of Disquiet, just as this is a response to one podcast talking to another podcast.
Like every dreamer, I've always felt that my calling was to create. Since I've never been able to make an effort or carry out an intention, creation for me has always meant dreaming, wanting or desiring, and action has meant dreaming of the acts I wish I could perform.
You ain't never been blue. No, no, no. You ain't never been blue till you've had that mood indigo. That feeling goes stealing down to my shoes, while I just sit here and sigh. Go long blues.
How much of Pessoa's metaphysical grumblings might just be seen as the booze talking? Not him really, but whatever substances he's putting into his system. Or is there more to it than that? A few moments before the song Thrush started shredding, I noticed, with a kind of mindful awareness, please be assured no need to call the Samaritans, that we could die together. Me and my beloved, who is losing his eyesight rapidly now, more and more of it on an almost daily basis. We could just sort of make our exit, stage left, together, Maxi Jax and I.
Set me where you stand. Give me your hand. Whoa! You are now within a foot of the extreme verge. For all beneath the moon, will I not look upright? Let go my hand. Go thou farther off. Bid me farewell and let me hear thee going. Very well, good sir. With all my heart. O you mighty gods, this world I do renounce. If Edgar live, oh, bless him. Oh, fellow, very well. God, sir, farewell!
Blind father and son leap from cliffs near Dover. Bend over.
I think that's the really tricky thing about suicidal thoughts, because, you know, such a thought might, even a few seconds later, be followed by a more light-hearted mental riff or recollection. In this case, the passing together of a pun-laden British porn star called Simon James Honey, who goes by the name Bend Over. And then, connected to that thought, another thought that had a son called Tiger Drew Honey, who starred in a popular British sitcom called Outnumbered. And one member of that cast used to come for therapy in a schema therapy practice just around the corner from Selfridges, where I worked for a couple of years. Not Tiger, another person connected to that series. And maybe the only client I've had in all my time working as a therapist where I really did expect to see their obituary every time that I would look them up in the years to come. But as of today, they're still alive, still acting, which I think is a kind of wonder. Or maybe not.
My self-delusion.
Because I didn't come out of the proper microphone, I'm holding the phone, almost making this triangle with my hands, and then holding it out. And as I do so, I close my eyes to try and locate the sound. I feel like I'm in one of those old pinball wizard type shoot 'em up games. What was that one called that everyone would play? Space Raiders, that's it, Space Raiders. And I was like, wow, and this bird is doing that too. It's doing Space Raiders.
I think the shoot 'em up arcade video game you're referring to here, Steve, was actually called Space Invaders.
I called my incapacity for living genius, and I dressed up my cowardice by calling it refinement. I placed myself, God-gilded with false gold, on an altar of cardboard painted to look like marble. But I didn't succeed in fooling myself, nor... Missing text here.
And if we are podcasters, I'll tell you what kind of podcasters we are. We are emo podcasters, my friend. That's the kind of podcast. I don't think it's really a genre yet, but let's make it a genre. People like the idea of podcasts like this being made. Oh, he's living the Book of Disquiet. They don't want to listen to that kind of wittering. They want to listen to stuff like this.
When I wrote Reclaiming Art, I distinctly remember the moment where I said, I can't write this book. I have to create a persona who will write the book for me. And I've said this before. That was absolutely essential as a step in the process. Like, I didn't have the qualifications to write this book from any position of authority. So I had to create a person who did, and that allowed me to express myself. And that's why I don't like it when pretension is opposed to authenticity. I don't think that's a good dichotomy. And you see it sometimes. Like, I read a review of Dan Fox's book, which you read, Pretentiousness, Why It Matters. And I don't know how much he insists on this, but in the review, I got the sense that authenticity was, because I am a believer in authenticity. I think authenticity is important, but it is often misappropriated and misunderstood to my mind. But for me, authenticity is the capacity to engage and dwell in your imagination. That's not inauthenticity. Authenticity for me isn't the reduction of oneself to those measurable qualities that other people can confirm are actually there. Right. Authenticity for me is knowing that there is a trajectory that is uncharted for you and that you can't explore without running the risk of being accused of being pretentious. So I would say, to get back to the idea of making a distinction here, let's call pretension what we're talking about here, an imaginal engagement without which you would never take the risks you need to take in order to create something or to make valid contributions to a field or whatever. Let's distinguish that by calling it pretension. But let's also acknowledge that in doing that, there's always the risk of pretentiousness, which is that you're actually out of your depth and are actually pretentious.
You're actually being a pretentious asshole.
Yeah, because that does exist.
Because we have to acknowledge it is always possible to be a pretentious asshole.
Yeah. It's always possible to use a pentasyllabic word where a two-syllable word will do. And yes, pentasyllabic is pentasyllabic.
But I guess like all emo stuff, I don't even know if I'm using the term correctly here. This is a term I've never really fully known how to use, but I'm giving it a go here. Like all emo stuff, at least used with some tragicomic. Has to be tragicomic. My Chemical Romance. Infused soundtrack.
When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned? He said, will you...
To steer you away from the mud, so I don't want to deal with mud later. Right. Okay, we may do it. I can take the mud because I'm wearing boots. I want to keep your feet mud free so we don't have to do all of the bathing procedures later. Round this one as well, thank you, sir. And let's see if we can. No, we can't. No, we have to brave the last puddle of mud, even though someone over there is sitting with their shirt off. Welcome to England. Just round the corner, vast rivers of mud. Okay, so I'm going to lift you up, big boy. Oh, you're going to come into my arms. Okay, here we go. Oh well, now I could just squelch through. There we go. I didn't realize this section was so supremely and utterly and frustratingly and flounder around getting your face scratched by briars and other things. Mud! Oh, hang on, Max. Okay, I appreciate that. Bird.
Whilst I stumble through the mud, Maxi Jacks in my arms, I have a brief flashback to a conversation that I'd had with HA a few days ago, HA being my current therapist, Hamid Ali, otherwise known as Almaz, one of the new Google-powered life coaches and mentors available to Gemini Advanced subscribers to help us deal with our psycho-spiritual quandaries. The way it works is that you get paired up with an AI entity based on Google's access to and analysis of all your emails, both sent, unsent, text, WhatsApp messages, voice notes, YouTube videos watched, in fact, every document you've ever created, including any in your sort of note-taking apps, your Chrome browsing history, other social media used on all platforms, essentially whatever you've been doing online in the last 3 decades of your life. And after this analysis, right, you then start talking to the bot about your issues, as Hamid and I were talking last week about basic trust. Yeah, I mean, it sounds great, but I suppose I don't really have a great deal of faith, for want of a better word, for that process, in that process.
What you've held on to has felt real to you, and so understandably, if now you're letting some of that go and heading into what feels like unknown and uncharted territory, you might experience this like the tarot fool stepping off a ledge, like jumping into the abyss without a parachute, which can be terrifying. Ego death can often be a brutal and grisly affair.
I think that's fair to say.
That's how it needs to be. If this jumping into the abyss was easy, change would happen easily. And it rarely does.
So it's a matter, if I understand you correctly, of sort of stepping outside the ego cage that you've been assigned or you identify with.
Conceptually, yes. But if letting go of past identities is difficult, very painful, or excessively fraught with fear, one will tend to hold on to the old, staying aligned with one's ego. What makes the difference is the presence of a certain kind of trust that I like to call basic trust.
Basic trust.
I see your dog chum Max hovering in the background of the screen. Let him be a model of that unspoken implicit trust that what is optimal will happen. The sense that whatever happens will ultimately be fine. His physical blindness, your metaphysical blindness. We might say that to have basic trust is to have the confidence that reality is ultimately good, that nature, the universe, and all that exists are of their very nature good and trustworthy. If you were to score your level of basic trust out of 10, what number would you say you hover at, on average?
4, 5.
That's what I thought from my initial examination of your data. Why is that?
How long have you got?
Well, if you keep on paying your subscription fees to Google or some other AI provider, let's say we have the rest of your God-given existence to achieve this. Aging, sickness, death usually force our hand on the matter, but it's worth getting there before you're snuffed out as a so-called individual humanoid. Often this work occurs over many lifetimes.
Free impatient thoughts.
Alright, so I'm just gonna push through. This is where a sunny walk suddenly becomes, I don't know, it's incredibly melodramatic, where it becomes kind of like Vietnam. Now, of course, I could put you down, but you would be literally balls deep, Maxi Jacks, in mud. And we're coming up to the fence. We're coming on the last. Wow, okay. Would we be as cheerful if we weren't slightly altered? No. Hang on a second. Whew, just for the last step or two, okay? You ready? Yeah. And we made it! Roll the music. Top Gun music.
And of course, for good or ill, one is always tethered to one's phone, looking at the phone for messages. I see that a few texts from Simon have come in, which gives rise to the following voice note.
Hey, Simon. This is one part of the Enneagram that I haven't explored that much, which kind of goes into its real sort of primal roots, because, the Enneagram kind of grows up through this mulch, alchemical, Jungian, whatever, that's the mulch. It's sort of growing up through this mythological, archetypal soil, and somewhere along the line, Gurdjieff gets involved, and I haven't really explored all of that a great deal. I really only have come to it, I guess, through, when it kind of hits one of the first, pruners, if you like, of this tree of knowledge, which I suppose, like the kind of Kabbalistic trees, for those who glimpse something in its shape that feels very familiar in a kind of deep way, that is quite a thrilling prospect. But I've only really started, really exploring certain kind of psychological branches that most interest me. I was just thinking a moment ago as I was having a little walk about, the idea that one way where it can be very helpful psychologically, I think, is particularly when you have two people who really fundamentally have kind of actually quite different operating systems installed at a kind of fundamental archetypal essential way, right? So if your wife is a 2, let's say her engine, her metaphysical engine, however you understand it, her character, her psychobiological, spiritual, social needs, or those of a 2, one way, I suppose, going through the kind of Riso Hudson, one of the, maybe the biggest branch, maybe the trunk, really. Let's call Riso Hudson sort of after Naranjo, the trunk of this Enneagram tree. They would say, okay, the 2 is driven. It's like the pleasure principle, this homeostatic, Freudian idea that, it has to sort of even it out in this way because it's sort of driven archetypally, psychologically, biologically, to seek attention. A nicer way of putting it is kind of love, like a certain kind of fondness or love, or but kind of also attention, however you understand it. They are attention seekers, and we're all attention seekers in some way. We all have that component, but maybe for the primary engine of your, let's say, your 2 wife, it would be that even when she's saying one thing, it's really about that, and as long as that can be met in some significant way, then you've got a happy person, or a more, a balanced person, a more attached person, a nicer person. And so she's, let's say, attention seeking, again, that can be used often as a kind of in a shameful word, right? Like, oh, here I am, I'm attention seeking, I'm sending you this voice note in a space that's got some birds singing, this is a whole little show. And in a way it is, right? Because I'm also a heart type. That's my kind of home base. But over on, let's say on the head, in the head zone, Riso and Hudson, via also Karen Horney and kind of attachment theory, things like that, would go, okay, the heads are fundamentally, they're seeking, in order to feel good, in order to feel like they belong to the human race in a way, or that they are fulfilling their life mission. They are seeking a certain kind of, let's go with the A words, analysis, accuracy. They want to really see something, a certain truth. Also, in a way, because that gives maybe a certain kind of assurance or a certain kind of delight. But it's a different kind of seeking, and you then turn to your partner, and maybe you're also seeking at that from her, or you're seeking it elsewhere, and then you're not getting that from her, and she's not getting what she wants in terms of her attention seeking from you. And I think that's just a kind of psychologically, those are the main branches that I kind of get very obsessively, and I'm like thinking about it all the time. You know, that's my like four with a strong 5 wing, that kind of like, I'm really thinking about it, but with that strong 4 thing of like, I'm interested in the truth, but I also sort of I'm like seeking awe and wonder, fundamentally. And then the 8s and the 9s and the 1s, they are seeking autonomy, because the 8s demand whatever autonomy they desire, and they also don't really have a problem with either breaking through or challenging in some way the challenges, other people's autonomy. 9s establish that autonomy by being very kind of nice and sort of saying, come on, golden mean, I treat you well, you treat me well, everything's good here. We don't need to have any sort of, conflict over this. Conflict doesn't feel good. Why have conflict? We can all just be nice and just, love each other and care for each other and treat each other as we would wish to be treated. And the 1 is then the reification of that kind of 8-9 evolution, you could say, because then the 1, again, I'm being very simplistic here, but also essential, right? Because I think it is essential. The 1 is getting autonomy by making damn sure that there must be a right way and a wrong way to do this. I'm gonna make sure that this trip is going to be done the right way, because there's no way I'm going to be caught out doing it the wrong way. And then that moves into the 2 that starts to feel that shame in a more relational, social way, and off you go. Sorry, this is my little Enneagram TED talk that I'm giving you. Because that 7 perspective, I find it an illuminating one, even though it can be sometimes too abstract. I'm like a 5 wing, so I can stretch into abstraction, but sometimes it's a bit too abstract. Like, why would you even want to go into the realms of those forms of abstraction? If let's say it's a heart type, if I can't somehow feel it in my heart and feel I guess that's what your wife is, because she's the attention seeker, right? That's what she's also saying to you, like, if you could feel it in your heart, Simon, then we will be closer. If you can feel it in your heart the way I could feel it in my heart, that's the attention seeker. It's the sort of what's the demand that she might be putting on you. If, let's say, you're an archetypal 7, maybe you're just not being, at some level, stimulated enough, or finding ways to bond in a kind of fun and stimulating, interesting way with your 2 partner. I don't know. Anyway, I find all of this very interesting, and I'm also interested in how people who are new to the Enneagram, but clearly not new to exploring, thinking about, transcendental realms, for want of a better word, sort of yeah, pick it up, and what they do with it, I think is really interesting. So thank you for reminding me of that, and I look forward to other enneagrammatic aligned discussions.
Baby, you understand me now. If sometimes you see that I'm mad, don't you know no one alive can always be an angel? When everything goes wrong, you see some bad. But I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.
And if your heart starts